I love talking to college students, really to students in general, but particularly young people, because I keep telling them that they've got the power to control an awful lot in the election cycle, and their voting patterns are so minuscule compared to other demographic groups, and it's discouraging because they could have a lot more influence.
Well, and you're exactly right. You know, let me ask you this though, because going back, I remember a let's just say slightly younger Jay Dardenne, who was first elected to the state senate back 91, and that was a very different legislative body than today. How do you think, as governor, you know, you could handle the changes? Because clearly, the Louisiana legislature is a very different organization than the last time you were there.
Well, you're right. It's been different at 3 points along the way. It was considerably different when I got there in 1992 than it was when I left in 2006, and it's even more different now in 2015. So there have been three really cyclical changes, I think, in the legislature. When I got there, you had folks who'd been there for years and years and years. It was before term limits. People were very entrenched. It was not partisan. There were very few Republicans, so there was not much opportunity for partisanship because we were in such a minority. When I left in 2006, Republicans were starting to control things, though not necessarily in the majority yet. And now you've got a legislature that is majority Republican, certainly very conservative in the voting patterns overall, and people who do not have the length of experience that the folks had when I first got there. And that's not altogether a bad thing. There can be a relatively quick learning curve if you're hardworking and you put your mind to it. And I think I think by and large we have a very good cast of elected characters in Louisiana right now. It's much improved, I think, from days in the past.
Lieutenant Governor Jay Dardenne is our guest today, and along those same lines, you know, with the changes, what do you think about the fact that so many of the Republicans now used to be Democrats, and so many of the Democrats are, I guess they're still Democrats, but is that going to really matter to most people? Are they going to vote for R's and D's in the upcoming governor's race?
Well, I don't think they are completely, to be honest with you, and I think you're going to see a lot of crossover votes. You're going to see a lot of Democrats voting for me and voting for Republicans, I think. But you have a number of people who were Democrats for years, voted generally conservatively, and have recognized that from a political standpoint they needed to be Republicans. Republicans were going to get elected, and people who had been Democrats changed their party affiliation in order to accommodate the changing whims of the voting public. And so you've got a lot of people who've joined the Republican Party, and obviously for a minority party to grow, it's got to have people come from the majority party, and that's what's happened in Louisiana. We're one of the reddest states in America. You
know, I mentioned this to John before. I was always a registered Democrat, and when I switched my party affiliation to Republican, I know my dad just rolled in his grave, and I had to get some dirt hauled out to the cemetery. But it's not the same Democratic Party that was in power when my dad was voting. It's just totally changed.
That's right. You're not alone, obviously. There are an awful lot of people who were loyal Democrats who have become Republicans, but there are probably an equal number of Democrats who vote Republican and have not changed their affiliation.
Correct.
So, you know, it's the party label has obviously meant something in the course of elections, and the more national the election, the more significant the party label becomes.
True. John?
You know, one of the things that we seem to be kind of running into this legislative session, it's been discussed, you know, and we've discussed it quite a bit on this show as well, is the tax credits for the film industry. And I think it's very easy for people who don't fully understand it to kind of, you know, to be down on it or to be hypercritical of it. And we've seen a ton of bills. We've also heard things from other people running for governor. But the new report that came out late yesterday that was commissioned by the film industry, an independent report out of New York, said that, guys, hold on a second. We've had a much bigger economic impact. We've even influenced the amount of tourists coming to the state. So perhaps we need to step back a second before we cut an industry that has, in their view, created more jobs in the last several years than any other sector in the state. What do you say about this sort of latest round of numbers?
Well, first of all, the hospitality and tourism industry is the fastest growing job sector in the state in terms of new job creation. That is due in part to the film industry, and I've said that and recognized that it is. It's not solely because of that, obviously, but I think it's accurate to say that our tourism numbers have been in part affected in a positive way by the fact that we're considered the Hollywood of the South. I authored the bill that created that tax credit. I've been a very strong supporter of the industry and very proud of the fact that it's grown as substantially as it has and created a domino effect of jobs and opportunities for young people in the creative fields. But I've also said, I've been saying this in my tour around the state here, that it needs to be on the chopping block as well. Like all the exclusions and exemptions and credits need to be looked at very carefully and need to be ratcheted back some, because we have a situation where we have very generous credits and exemptions and exclusions, and it may be that they're too generous, given the fact that they were started for the purpose of creating industries or helping industries grow, and there's got to be a commensurate level of accountability and determination of what the return on investment is for the people of Louisiana. So I am a defender of the industry because I think it's been great for Louisiana, but I also have said that we're going to have to look at it very carefully and perhaps put a reasonable cap on it, make some other changes that have been proposed that I think will still not chase the business away from Louisiana, but give us an opportunity to realize a little more revenue for the state.
I know this is asking a lot, but in the last minute and a half or so, could you give us some idea of how you would deal with the present budget crisis?
Well, we start with the exemptions and exclusions and the credits that I've talked about. I mean, that's what you've got to look to that will create the potential for some immediate money on the revenue side of the page.
Sure.
I also would not omit saying that there still needs to be some scaling back of what government is doing, and I don't think we've adequately prioritized spending in the state. In my mind, higher education is at the top of the list of priorities, and if that would be the case, it should not be the biggest area that's being cut in the budget, notwithstanding all the dedicated monies. We've got to make it a true priority, and I think the legislature is going to spend a good deal of time, I think, evaluating these credits and exemptions and exclusions and making some changes that will generate some revenue. They're going to probably look at the proposed revenue sources. Well, the governor apparently says he's going to be vetoing things if it's not revenue neutral. Revenue neutral doesn't accommodate the problem that we've got, where you've got to create some revenue if you're going to save higher education. So it's going to be a challenge for the legislature, and I think it is going to direct the future course that the next governor, which I hope will be me, meets when he comes into office in early January. And I don't think that they will solve the long-term structural problem with the budget in this session. I think it'll be the first order of business next year. Lieutenant Governor Jay Dardenne has been our guest today. Thanks for being with us, and we understand you'll be making a road trip tomorrow. Thanks, guys. Good to talk to y'all. Thanks. Same here. 5:29 at KPEL. We got Todd Starnes coming up, as well as some local news. We hope you'll stick around with us on KPEL.